Historic Landmarks.
In progress.
Thank you. Calling to order the Historic Landmarks Commission meeting of October 9th, 2024. May we have a roll call, please?
Thank you, Vice Chair House. I'll take roll call. Chair Grumbine is absent. Vice Chair House.
I'm here.
Commissioner Butler.
Here.
Commissioner Dornan.
Here.
Commissioner Drury.
Yes.
Commissioner Ensberg is absent. Commissioner Lindvik.
Present.
Commissioner McClure is absent. Commissioner Uli is also absent. We have a quorum. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to our first item, which is general business, public comment.
Our first public commenter is going to be Nathan Slack, the Urban Forest Superintendent, who is here to update you on the email and the staff report that you received yesterday. And then there will be a brief period where you can ask questions, but I just want to remind the board that this is not an agendized item, so we shouldn't get into discussion.
Is it going to be on our agenda later?
I do not believe so as of right now. But so with that, I'll turn it over to Nathan.
Okay. Greetings.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Nathan Slack, Urban Forest Superintendent. We're here today to provide a brief update regarding the Doremus stone pines, the city landmark that's located within the 3 to 800 blocks of East Anapamu Street.
Is that thing working?
Yeah, I'm trying to make it work. Is that better?
I can hear you.
Yeah.
I want to hear you.
So during the presentation back on July 17th, the commission encouraged us to come and try to provide updates as often as possible and utilize public comment when there was no formal agendized items. So we're here today to update you on that. Back in July 17th, we shared a timeline of events in addition to recapping some of the challenges and pending work on the street. That involved going to the Street Tree Advisory Committee to evaluate the existing street tree designation, which is the Italian stone pine and has been since 1981. Last week on last Thursday, the Street Tree Advisory Committee met, had a pretty lengthy discussion regarding the existing designation, possible changes or modifications to the review. It was for a Street Tree Advisory Committee meeting. It was well attended by the public, so we had some great public comment. There was pretty lengthy discussion. It involved the stone pine in particular, the pros and cons, similar to what we looked at back on July 17th with the commission. Also, there were 17 other species kind of floated. Really only a couple of those kind of stuck, and there was discussion associated with those. 7 of those were associated with Doremus, either directly through kind of first introduction to the city or kind of planting, as street trees or park trees. So there was some historical tie, at least to Doremus, on some of the species that were provided. They spent about an hour and a half discussing it. Ultimately, I think when the committee was looking at the stone pine, there was general consensus that due to primarily the hardscape damage and the frequency of it, the mature size, that it wasn't suitable any longer for use on Anapamu Street. To a lesser extent, we've seen an uptick in mortality, just conifers in general, and that does include the stone pines. And that was, to a lesser extent, some of the rationale where the committee noted that it may make sense to look at something else in addition or in complete substitution of the stone pine. Of all of those species talked about, the native coast live oak kind of rose to the top quickly. They stated, it's native, regionally adapted, provides great wildlife habitat. It is unique in that despite being a large canopy tree, has a low incidence of hardscape disruption. So even though it can get large, we don't see it disrupting curb and gutter and sidewalks as much as other species will. And then I think also during discussion, I think with public comment and also from the committee's perspective, there was a desire to recreate that dense, tree-lined street canopy. And while a slower growing tree, they commented that the oak could achieve that over time. There was some discussion about retention of the stone pine as a co-designation, so having stone pine and coast live oak and intermixing them. After discussion, they were of the opinion that it still is too difficult to kind of shoehorn into those spots, knowing that we're going to get into this cycle of road repairs and curb and gutter and root pruning and just what we talked about back in July, essentially, leading to complications with the stone pines. And then after review, they made a recommendation to use the Quercus agrifolia or the native coast live oak for the 300 to 800 blocks of East Anapamu in lieu of the previously designated Italian stone pine. So the advisory committee is purely that. They made a recommendation. That recommendation will go to the Parks and Recreation Commission in a couple weeks on October 23rd. That's held at City Council chambers at 4 p.m. We released a press release yesterday that went out to all media sources. We're also putting signage with a brief blurb with the proposed change on each of the blocks of Anapamu from Garden down towards Milpas. And that also has a QR code that will bounce you to the project webpage that has stuff that we've talked about previously, as well as the next steps with the upcoming commission meeting. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Could you say once more what the date was of the Parks and Rec meeting in council chambers?
Yes, it'll be October 23rd, and that's at 4 p.m. in City Council chambers. Mm-hmm. And we've encouraged, both attendance and written comment in advance of that, and the press release and the marketing materials have all of that contact information.
Thank you. Are there any questions of the
Yes, Mr.
speaker?
Could I ask one question? Regarding the coast live oak that is being recommended, where are they used elsewhere? And if so, in general, can you describe where?
Yes.
Specifically as a street tree.
Yeah, I think over in the Oak Park Lane neighborhood is a great example. The press release had a photo at the bottom that was taken at Oak Park Lane. There's some great ones, in Oak Park, referenced to be planted by Doremus back when the park was developed. It's one of the most frequently occurring tree species that we have. And despite it being a huge number in our tree inventory, we don't have a lot of really defined, consistent, uniform streets of them. You can find them sprinkled all around the community, but we don't really have a true grand street. So Oak Park Lane's a good example. There's medium age to juveniles right by the hospital in Oak Park Lane that's very dense. It's starting to show that canopy, but despite having hundreds and hundreds throughout as street trees, there's not that grand street, and I think that there's a potential that Anapamu could be that in decades.
Thank you.
Thank you for your update.
Thank you.
Okay, I do have another speaker slip for Rick Clausen. If you want to make your way up to the podium, you'll have 3 minutes to speak, 2 minutes to speak, sorry.
Thank you. You just heard the summation from our urban forest superintendent. I have 3 main concerns, which I'll insert to you from my letter to your council liaison, Mr. Snedden. First of all, regarding historic significance. The original 1997 landmarking recommendation from HLC to the council was based on the historic significance of the trees, specifically, quote, their identification with a person, Dr. Augustus Boyd Doremus, who significantly contributed to the culture and development of the city through his horticultural work, unquote. Dr. Doremus planted these pine trees, not oak trees here, and these cannot be, and oak trees here could not meet the defined cultural threshold for significance, historic significance in this spot. Therefore, substituting oak trees or any other tree not specified in the landmarking documentation automatically invalidates the 1997 council decision. Second, regarding the authority of the city council, the Park and Recreation Commission may have jurisdiction and authority over street tree designations throughout the city, except when it contradicts the authority of a superior city agency, in this case, the city council. I fear that any new street tree designation initiated by Parks and Rec Commission here undermines the city council's unique authority over landmark designations and revocations. And third, regarding the purview of this Historic Landmarks Commission, planting any different tree species to replace the historically significant and officially designated Pinus pinea eventually removes a historic resource from the city. In fact, because each tree is listed in the original landmarking documentation, it became part of the historic inventory. The loss of each tree is a removal from the city's historic resources inventory. The proper removal procedure is defined in Santa Barbara Municipal Code 30.157.050, which you all have a copy of. The procedure, and it's called the procedure for removing historic resources from the inventory. That procedure falls solely and specifically within the purview of the Historic Landmarks Commission, not the Parks and Recreation Commission. A noticed public hearing by HLC is required with a significance report by the city's architectural historian, and the commission must make findings the feature is no longer, quote, historically or culturally significant. Once again, an attempt is being made to usurp your authority over historic landmarks within Santa Barbara.
Thank you very much.
At this time, I don't have any further speaker slips, and I'm not seeing any movement. We also do not have any virtual participants, and we did not receive any written correspondence, so I'll turn it back over to you, Vice Chair House.
Thank you. I will close general public comment, and we will move on to item B, which is approval of the minutes of the Historic Landmarks Commission meeting of September 25th, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
Drury and Butler. And any questions or comments on those minutes? Then we'll go to a roll call vote, please.
Thank you, Vice Chair House. I'll take roll call vote. Commissioner Dornan,
Yes.
Commissioner Drury,
Yes.
Commissioner Butler,
Yes.
Commissioner Lindvik,
Yes.
Commissioner McClure,
Yes.
Vice Chair House.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, we'll move on to item C, approval of the minutes of the Historic Landmarks Commission consent meeting of September 25th, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
Drury and Butler once again. Are there any comments or corrections on those? Then may we have a roll call vote, please?
Thank you, Vice Chair House. I'll take roll call vote. Commissioner Drury,
Yes.
Commissioner Butler,
Yes.
Commissioner Lindvik,
Yes.
Commissioner McClure,
Yes.
Commissioner Dornan,
Yes.
Vice Chair House.
Yes.
Motion passes.
And we'll move on to item D, ratification of action taken on the consent calendar of today, October 9th, 2024. Staff?
Thank you, Vice Chair House. Item A was 469 West Mountain Drive, which received final approval as submitted. Item B was 473 West Mountain Drive, which received final approval as submitted. Item C was City Lot Number 5, which was continued indefinitely with the comments to return with revised plans, including the alternative location of the transformer and the parking space, and to return with information on the proposed landscaping and irrigation around the transformer. Item D was 1801 East Cabrillo Boulevard, which received approval of review after final with the condition that the mechanical equipment on the roof be clad in board and batten to match the siding in lieu of stucco. That would be the mechanical equipment screening.
Thank you.
And then the item E was 1715 Laguna Street, which received revised project design approval. I'm so sorry. Revised project design approval and final approval with the following findings. One, the damage of the existing firebox is substantial, noting that using the dimensions on the plans and photo documentation, it could be replicated in the future if desired. Although the chimney is a character-defining feature, it is not the most dominant feature, and the building has enough of its original features that it is still able to convey its historic significance for the CEQA exemption. And two, the project compatibility analysis findings generally have been met. Item F was 2151 Mission Ridge Road, which received approval of review after final as submitted.
Thank you. May we have a roll, let's see, did we get a motion and a second on that?
So moved.
Butler and Drury, so roll call vote, please.
Could I ask a question?
Please.
You were the reviewer today?
I and Commissioner McClure.
So tell me about parking lot 5.
Uh-huh. Well, they had it,
Refresh my memory.
where that parking lot is. Anapamu is opposite the UPS store. And the museum, what is that?
Yeah.
Scripts.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. Anyway, there's a slump block wall that's about 5 feet tall, and it's got a shrub growing in front of part of it. And they opted to place it in a landscape area within the parking lot. We had concerns about that because it involved the remove of a tree, and the claim was that they were gonna let this shrub grow higher and that would screen it, but you could tell from the plan that, no, it's not in front of the transformer. And they had, well, the question was raised, did you consider taking one of those parking spaces? And they conveniently had a plan of that.
They did, huh?
Yes.
Oh,
And so it just didn't have landscaping called out on it. I mean, it showed there would be landscaping, but it wasn't specified. And so that was definitely preferable.
Is that over by the wall with a cat on it?
Yes,
Okay,
yeah.
so we'll see that, you'll see that again.
Yeah, it's just basically to look at what they're specifying for the landscaping.
Okay.
Any other questions? Roll call vote, please.
Thank you, Vice Chair House. I'll take roll call vote. Commissioner Butler,
Yes?
Commissioner Lindvik,
Yes.
Commissioner McClure,
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan,
Yes.
Commissioner Drury,
Yes.
Vice Chair House.
Yes,
Motion passes.
thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Lenvick?
Yes, I don't want us to pass over this too quickly, but does staff have any idea of how the landmark designation of the Stone Pines will be waived by the city? I mean, is there an intention to come back and de-designate those trees?
Chair House, Vice Chair House, I think if there's a specific question, I can look into it. Apologies, by being on maternity leave, I missed a good bit of the conversation, so I'll be able to follow up on that. So I don't want to, I understand the question, but I can't say anything for sure right now. And
wish you-
I think
yeah.
but based on what I understand, it's a Parks and Rec Commission decision. I also don't want to open it up for conversation right
No,
now,
I understand.
but I can certainly, I know that that there was a lot of review of the resolution and kind of what it is, and, our landmark status is very important, and I don't want to diminish that at all. So I think, I know that there was, again, there was review into that, but I can follow up later.
My question is similar. After this Parks and Rec meeting at the council chambers, is that the end of it, or does it then need to go to city council for some approval?
To that question, I can say that similar to any HLC decision, approval or denial, that is an appealable action to the city council. So the Parks and Rec Commission is appealable to city council, and I know that, that any one individual can attend the Parks and Rec Commission. You wouldn't want to be representing the HLC, but you can certainly go to the Parks and Rec Commission meeting on the 23rd and voice your concerns, opinions, whatever it may be, as an individual.
Can the HLC as a body make a presentation at the city council
So.
or at Parks and Rec?
Again, this wasn't, it's not agendized, so there's no discussion we don't have a discussion item for that. And it's, I just want to acknowledge that.
Okay.
I'm not suggesting that I'm opposed to what is intended to happen on Anapamu with the tree change. However, I'm concerned about what I see over the last several years. Landmarks Commission and their responsibilities or authority, whatever you want to term it, being ignored by Public Works Department, by various departments. They simply say, well, we're not going to go to landmarks. We're not going to do this, that, and they simply ignore us. So, we could see the city council sitting there with Parks recommendation and saying, that's great. And I'm hoping that the city attorney, who's I'm sure watching us now, would say, no, we should adhere to the ordinances and the rules that we have in place and go back to landmarks and get them to do their action and come to you, whatever. I'm just hopeful that will be the case. Going to Parks and Rec as members of this committee, will not change the action of Parks and Rec and what they do at City Council. We should be going to the city attorney and saying, this has to be resolved in a legal manner.
To,
I'm done.
Mr. Chair, yeah, I think I want to cut it off, but I can say that I know that the city attorney was consulted in this matter.
Yes, I know
Thank you.
that. Okay. Moving on to item F, subcommittee reports. Are there any subcommittee reports?
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Drury.
can we go back to item E, announcements and so on?
Oh,
I
missed
just have
that,
a
didn't
comment
I?
to make on some of the recent HLC meetings we've had. There's been a number of rather slipshod plans presented to us, not complete, not buttoned up, and I think it's a waste of time, and I would hope that whoever's staff is responsible for these presentations make sure that the applicants under their sway has everything buttoned up properly. It's a waste of time for us to look at incomplete plans, having to correct them as we sit. Thank you.
If I might,
Certainly.
I agree with Mr. Drury's comments. What I see lacking is the project that's being brought before us is not properly, the drawings don't put the project in the context of the neighborhood. We see buildings that are on the site plan for that building, but we don't see what's adjoining. And there are very specific submittal requirements that require that. And I can go down to the entry down here and pull them out and waive them. But we don't get staff looking through the submittal and saying, I can't take this to the Landmarks Commission or ABR because you haven't shown us this project in the context of the neighborhood.
I'm curious to ask Commissioner Drury, are you speaking more specifically either about concept review or project design approval drawings or final drawings?
I'm speaking of the ADU projects that came in front of us.
AUD or the little houses?
Little houses.
Oh, okay.
And many of the drawings by two or three of the presenters were just not, we were constantly correcting, asking why this doesn't meet. And I think that's all a question of managing the machinery properly in terms of the drawings, but it needs to be done before it gets to us.
Mr. Chair, may I weigh in on that? I think you're referring to the pre-approved ADU designs, so the accessory dwelling unit. This is the first time we've ever done this, and it's basically an open call. And now we know what is expected when you come to HLC or ABR or SFDB, that you have to provide neighborhood context. And if you don't submit that as part of your plan set, then you can expect that the board or commission is going to ask for such detail. With the pre-approved designs, the idea is that you can kind of put them, that if they're pre-approved, that they could go in any location. Of course, there's nuances to that based on which board and where, kind of what the context of the site is. But we just accepted an open call. And so some applicants had beautifully fleshed out plans that were kind of like ready for final approval. And some applicants had what we know we wouldn't make it past, whether even the zoning review, that it wouldn't pass muster. But we just kind of took all of them at once, and so you all had a harder, for the ones that were less complete, or I think that those are the ones that were going to be harder for you to actually review. And it was kind of relying on the applicant, like we can't force their hands to provide better drawings. It was like, here's your opportunity, put together the best plan you can, and we saw different levels and standards for that. So I think that you all were the guinea pigs. All the design review boards were guinea pigs, and we were had our own learning curve. So I think we would be much more, I think moving forward next year, we would try to standardize certain things and make certain requirements, because we kind of didn't know, is anybody going to apply? Are we going to have 100? Are we going to have one? What's the level? And so you just know that we're all learning. And yes, I would agree that, and there was no obligation to move plans, to make a recommendation from the commission when the plans aren't sufficient enough and you're like, I don't really understand this design. There is no reason to move a project forward if there wasn't enough information. And it's not lost on us, because the more thorough it is, the easier it is for our review. So
Yeah, and if I could make
Thank you.
an observation and a question, the observation would be that in this case, there are no adjacent properties because.
That's right.
Yeah, exactly.
Can I make one other
Sure.
statement? I do want, just for context, that we do have often one-time pre-application consultations that come to you. So when they're on the agenda, it calls it out as a one-time pre-app consultation. That has no standard. That's basically, I want initial design review before I start putting any money into
Right.
more concepts. And we tell applicants that could be a back of a napkin sketch. That's kind of the concept of it. So oftentimes what you see is some people come in with very fleshed out designs and with a lot of context for neighborhood context, but then others come in with something that might look subpar because we would expect more at a concept review under a formal planning application. So just be aware of when you see that on the application, that it's going to be a real range of what an applicant puts together for you.
So for these pre-approved ADU projects, those are beyond the one-time pre-application review status, aren't they? They're actual
So
applications.
they are preparing, the ones that received recommendations are preparing plans to submit to Building and Safety, and Building and Safety then has to do a full review of those plans. And those plans need to essentially follow the direction that was provided.
I'm
So
trying to recall, was there a provision that we have so many bites at the apple before they can move on? I mean, we have to.
we cut it off, like we said, 2 rounds. Oftentimes, to get to a final design at HLC or ADR, oftentimes a project will come, depending on size, of course, it could have 2 to 4 meetings, 2 to 5 meetings for larger projects, more than that. So,
Because it's always
we wanted to cut it off because you could go on, we didn't even know, are these feasible from a building permit standpoint? So we didn't want to go too far. And that's, again, a learning curve too of like what works. So I think that happy to talk about it as we, the next time we open it up and think about what worked, what didn't work, what would be helpful. And I appreciate the feedback, because similarly, I thought, that plan just, I don't think, I don't think it's a good
Don't
one
give
to
us
show,
specific
but I
now.
don't want to say anybody in specific. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Just want to remind you, there's always our option to deny something.
Yes, well,
Yeah, and to not, and that's what, there's no obligation particularly for those to recommend it. And I think that there are some that are like, we just don't have enough information here, or
Right.
it's not clear. And I think we do, it also is in your purview that if an applicant doesn't submit something related to the neighborhood compatibility or like a street elevation or kind of, that you have the right to ask for that. You can't ask for that at project design approval. But through the concept review, first concept review, ideally it would happen at first concept review, so they bring all of that. And hopefully they have that stuff for the first concept review so you can understand what these projects are to begin with. That's the goal.
You're talking too fast. We have to drag this out, remember?
I honestly thank you for the questions, because I think we're doing well here. We're giving Anthony some time, or
Yeah.
Chair Grumbine.
Are there any other announcements or requests by applicants for continuances or withdrawals, future agenda items, and appeals?
Mr. Chair, I have an update.
Okay,
So the commission may recall that the planning commission had asked us to present our findings for 17 to 21 Montecito Street, the motorcycle.
oh, yeah.
Remember that? And they had wanted, it was going through, it was on the agenda on March 27th. So I did attend, and I did present sort of our view with some details about some of the recommended updates, changes, et cetera. overall, the planning commission was very receptive to our suggestions and to the project at large. So I just wanted to share that.
Thank you. Staff?
And just to kind of tag along with that update on that project will be returning to the Historic Landmarks Commission on the October 23rd HLC meeting, so the next one.
Okay.
I can say that it has been appealed. The planning decision was appealed, but the reason it's going to come back to HLC is because HLC is also an appeal. There can be an appeal to the city council. So if there is already an appeal, we might as well get the design review decision if there's some synchronicity of that.
It wasn't something I said, I hope.
Okay, no further announcements? Okay, we'll move on to subcommittee reports. Are there any? I guess not. And so we will recess until Chair Grumbine appears.
Pretty
And may I
arduous
make
so
a
far.
recommendation? Could we say 2:10? That's when he said he would be here. So if we could do that for our, anyone listening
Okay.
via Zoom or watching
you
on
an
City
update
TV,
then.
let's try at 2:10.
Okay.
Thank you.
We are recessed. reopening the Historic Landmarks Commission meeting. And I don't know what else to say, so.
So this is a facilitated discussion on parklets in the public right-of-way. The discussion is intended to assist commissioners in reviewing proposals for parklets under the purview of the Historic Landmarks Commission. We have Sarah Clark here, who, yes, you can sit in the, and I've got your presentation loaded, and she will begin with an overview of the parklet program.
And I see Mr. Grumbine walking in, so.
Oh, you do?
If you
Wonderful.
want to just take your time getting ready, Ms. Clark.
You are docked your $50 meeting pay. We just opened this item.
Okay, thank you, Vice Chair House and Chair Grumbine, committee members. I'm just going to give you a very brief overview and sort of refresher on the parklet program, the parklet ordinance, and what those requirements are. So the parklet program was officially established back in December of 2023 when City Council adopted ordinance number 6134, which governs the program and lays out the requirements. The purpose of this is to establish a licensing program to sort of make parklets on the street official and as needed permitted. Whereas before, they were done on an emergency basis in response to the COVID-19 closures. So I want to clarify also that this ordinance and the parklets themselves, this does not apply to facilities that are on the State Street Promenade. Those continue to be governed under Title 31 of the Municipal Code, also adopted by Council. This only applies to parklet facilities that are not on State Street. So just a very quick overview of the licensing process. All applicants are required to submit a pre-application. That's when the city will take their proposed location. It's just a very basic application and review it to determine, first off, whether the location is allowable. There are a number of locations that are prohibited by ordinance for safety reasons. So whether it's an allowable location and what their review and approval process is going to look like, because just like with most land development projects, it looks different based on where you are. So city staff from across multiple departments will review it. They'll provide information and advisories to the applicant and then return that information to them so they can then prepare their application for the license. So the application process generally starts, they'll submit their license application and then they'll go over to community development and submit for design review. And that would be HLC, obviously, if they're in EPV, or ABR if they are not. If you're in the coastal zone, you will also have to submit for a CDP. So that process goes forward. That's the process through which the design is reviewed and refined. And then when that process is complete, it comes over to Public Works, where engineering will take a look at it. At that point, we'll also have Public Safety take a look at those proposals before issuing a license agreement. So the ordinance does not include a whole lot of very specific design requirements. A lot of that's going to come down to the design review bodies, such as yourselves. But it does include a few limits, specifically size limits. Parklets are limited to depth of no greater than 80 inches from the curb. Side, so the barriers that are around the side of the parklet, whether that's a firm structure or whether it's plants, things like that, those are limited to no more than 42 inches in height. And then if there are posts, for example, at the corner to support lighting, those are limited to no more than 82 inches. Roofs and overhead structures, which I know has been a point of contention in the past, are prohibited. So umbrellas are allowed, but no other roofs or shade structures. The parklets must be designed in compliance with all California Building Code and ADA accessibility requirements, and we require them to submit sign-off by a certified accessibility specialist to verify that they do meet those requirements. And then the big one, which I imagine will be a topic of some discussion, is the requirement for approved traffic safety barriers. This is a safety requirement that came out of our experience with the temporary parklet program, where we had a number of them that were destroyed by vehicle collisions. So for safety's sake, our city engineer has determined that in order to safely have these facilities in the street, they need to be surrounded by a traffic safety barrier that is MASH tested and approved to be collision resistant. So the city engineer has developed and specified a list of approved barriers that the applicants are free to choose from. And then when it comes to this committee and to design review in general, while this committee may specify from that list which barrier they prefer, you cannot say you don't want a barrier or you want a barrier that is not on that list. It has to be on the approved city engineer's list. You may also specify color, coding, or other aesthetic features of the barrier, so long as it doesn't compromise the safety of the barrier, and also, generally acknowledge that we will require reflectors and things like that on the corners just for traffic safety. So that's really all I have today. I just wanted to give you a quick kind of refresher of where we are with the parklets and the parklet program. This is the very first application that's come this far in the process, so we are all learning together on this. So thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, if I may also say that, we saw many of these kind of sprinkled all over. Many of them are still there. They started the application process. A number of them were dismantled because not necessarily meeting the geographic locations or safety, with the safety in mind, and didn't meet the thresholds. But some, again, just decided that they didn't want to necessarily pursue it. We have one today. It'll be the first one, as Ms. Clark mentioned. I think it'll be helpful. We're just bringing these to you as a one-off, but the purpose of, why we're having this, we've requested this conversation and wanting to respond to your ask of this, is to be able to put something together to kind of help people understand what could be approved, so that they have some guidance there. Just also to mention, we do have an outdoor dining program that has long been in existence, and we have many businesses throughout the city that utilize this, but you will notice that there are specifications for that as well, and some businesses may not have the ability to even pursue outdoor dining because of the sidewalk isn't wide enough or it doesn't meet other things. So I'm sure that some businesses may be coming to you with this particular request because they might not be able to pursue other things. So that just kind of context for there's so many different programs that are on site, on private property. This is public right of way. We have our outdoor dining on sidewalks. There's a lot of moving parts to this.
Yes, and to clarify, the one that you will see today does not have enough space on the sidewalk to have outdoor dining on the sidewalk.
Gotcha. All right. That completes the presentation?
I have a
Yes.
question, Mr. Chair.
Let's do public comment first, and then we'll go into questions and discussion. So, and then, all right, so do we have any virtual? Because I'm not seeing anyone in the room.
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. At this time, we do not have any virtual participants, and we didn't receive any written correspondence for this item, so I'll turn it back over to you, Chair Grumbine.
All right, Commissioner Lendick, question?
The State Street Parklet program does have standards, furniture and so on and so forth, right?
There are a series of design requirements. However, by design, those don't necessarily apply to a lot of the facilities that are on the street. Council wanted to sort of create a program that would kind of grandfather in ones that had been there for a while. So newer ones that come in do have a much tighter set of standards. However, the existing ones, it's a more limited set of design standards.
I have a question. When will we see that list of the approved smash, or, yeah, I wanted to say smash barrier.
Smash burger?
Yeah, smash barriers.
Yes, through the chair, Vice Chair House. We do have that published on our website. I don't have a copy of it in front of me.
I mean, if we're
we wanna get
reviewing
that-
an application
yeah.
today, obviously they incorporate those, so are
pull
we
that
going to
up.
see what the choices are?
Correct. We could probably print that out and,
If you let us know where it is, we can pull it up.
sure. If you go to business, just under business, no, yeah, and then outdoor dining programs, parklets in the public right of way. Then if you scroll down, so there's the link to the list. Nope, list of crash tested, there we go.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Commissioner Jordan.
just two quick information questions. The accessibility requirements, you mentioned something, somebody has to certify that it meets that. Who does that certification?
Certainly, thank you. Through the chair, we require the applicant to submit a letter from a certified accessibility specialist verifying that the facility is compliant.
Okay, and the other quick question deals with water and water drainage. Who's responsible for certifying that it won't obstruct water?
Sure, so that is part of the review that they will undergo through our engineering.
Through the engineering?
Yeah.
Okay.
Our engineering division.
And can this be zoomed in on? I can't quite see what these are.
Make it page width, and there you go. Maybe zoom in on the images on the left, and we can just kind of look through those. So those are water-filled plastic ones, is that right?
Somewhat like K-rails?
Yeah.
Excuse me, yes. K-rail, is one of those terms that are, similar to Kleenex or Q-tips, where really it refers to a specific thing, but has come to be more broadly used. Technically, K-rail itself, I believe, actually isn't on this list, but there are some water-filled barriers. There are also quite a few concrete or even steel barriers that are included. We don't have great pictures of them here, obviously, but we do have links, and you can find other images to them online.
Great.
I have a question. Wouldn't it make sense to make them all black? Like there's some red and some orange up there. Wouldn't it make better sense to just go black?
Sure, Chair Grumbine, Commissioner McClure. That is something that you as a committee could decide and ask the applicant for.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that for the commission and even for myself, quite frankly, is for lighting, I just want to, is there, from an electrical standpoint, from behind the scenes, is that allowed to be included as part of this?
Yes, they are allowed to have lighting, and that is something that could be reviewed and commented on by this committee. Our only requirement is that it cannot be wired into any city electrical infrastructure. It has to be wired into the building's electrical infrastructure, and it can't be run across the top of the sidewalk, so as not to create a trip hazard. So it would either need to be battery operated, solar operated, or otherwise run through conduit, basically.
Question?
Yep.
Lighting, that's a great question. So regarding the barriers, is there possible that the applicant could apply lighting somehow onto the barrier themselves? Is that permissible?
Chair Grumbine, Commissioner Butler, it could be, yes. That's something we'd probably want to touch base with our engineering division on, just because we wouldn't want to put lights in a way that would make it difficult or distracting for drivers. But probably some sort of like string lighting or something on the inside, I'm guessing likely wouldn't be an issue, but that's something we'd want to clear with engineering.
Strobe lights.
Well, I was thinking of, for at night, obviously, and maybe just highlight the barrier, just to make it more visible or something.
Yeah, we already require, and we would certainly continue to require reflectors and reflective materials on the corners so that those are visible.
Mr.
Other
Chair?
questions? Yep, Commissioner Jordan.
Mr. Did you suggest that they were going to run electrical cords across the sidewalk?
That's not allowable.
That would
No,
not be
no.
allowable. Yes.
I misunderstood. Thank you.
If there are bike carols groupings of bikes that are adjoining, let's say, adjoining the parklet or freestanding independent, do they need to have the protective barriers, the smash barriers as well?
So committee member Commissioner Lenvik, through the chair, the bicycle hoops, or if there's like a bicycle corral adjacent, those would not constitute a collision-proof or collision-resistant barrier. So we would still ask that there be a barrier placed.
Okay. And some of these bikes are part of the rental program or whatever, the white bikes.
That's correct, yes.
Do they ever end up on the street?
What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, are they going to have to provide a barrier?
Oh, no, we don't require a barrier for the bike racks that are in the street because it's not expected that a person would be
Okay,
there
so
for
you
more
don't
than a
require
minute or
them.
two.
Okay, you don't require them to run a carol.
Correct, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other questions? So I wanted to jump in with a few sort of general discussion of this item. And I was there at City Council meeting when this was passed. In terms of putting K-rail or removing K-rails from HLC's purview in terms of design of it, because there's other options, there's other ways of engineering it so that it's safe, right? And it doesn't involve a K-rail or a version of it. So I feel very strongly that currently we're under the system and they're out of our jurisdiction. I feel very strongly that it needs to be a conversation with City Council so that we get them back into part of the big discussion. But for now, these are the rules of what's in front of us and in place where we need to select from these groupings. So anyways, that's just a sort of initial comment on it. I think it's a discussion that needs to happen at the City Council level first, and then be able to continue it from our end. Assuming that everyone is also in agreement with that general point, I would like to go to City Council and I'd like your guys' thoughts on it, if you agree with that.
I have thoughts. Yeah, you can have some very nice black bollards that are very, very nondescript and not a whole big massive thing.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, yes, actually, that triggered my question, which was, I think the intent of these, if they're movable at some point, if you wanted, you could lift them, the K-rails, or for lack of a better term. But, yeah, a European approach would certainly be bollards, cast iron or steel, and it's a lot more attractive.
Yeah.
And you can also, anyway.
Yeah.
I would like to see some options rather
Yeah.
than just putting up these monstrosities.
And I think a part of the big thing that's driving it, pun intended, is the close adjacency of seating people, which is also why the bikes are okay to be by there, because someone goes, locks their bike and leaves. So because you're having stationary people right up against the roadway, that's what's sort of driving this. Whereas if you have it up against the building and you have the sidewalk on the outside, it doesn't. It has a walking path, but it's not like people are sitting there just targets the whole time. So we're not targets, but just not.
So, Mr. Chair?
So, yeah.
So do we have choices to make?
So it's sort of like a Model T. Any color you want, as long as it's black.
Yeah.
So we have the list of choices, but they're all versions of the K-rail. And so I think part of the question is, what's the least offensive, right?
No bollards.
No
Not so
ballers.
far.
No, but I think that this was a decision that was made because of certain circumstances that were at the city at the time and as a leftover of COVID. So I think this is a discussion that warrants rediscussing, because I don't think that my opinion, and I think that probably most, if not all, everyone's going to obviously agree with me, is we shouldn't be having this throughout the city as a standard. I mean, these are temporary measures for protecting people from traffic and on freeways in general, but they're not really appropriate for Santa Barbara.
I just make a comment that there ample space to be tagged with graffiti,
Yeah,
and they will be. Attempts will be made, I'm sure.
yeah. Okay.
We aren't selecting the K-rail. The applicant is coming.
But we
to
can
us.
direct them to something on the list.
We can suggest another option, yes.
So, and our purview in this current state is that we can select another option, but it has to be from this list. So we could require that as long as we're requiring something from the list, right? Is that, okay. So I just want to make sure that we're all good with the rules engagement, and also for the continued conversation. This is obviously our first application that we're seeing, but obviously others will come, and I think it makes sense to get ahead of this as opposed to having these.
Mr. Chair, is there a recommendation from engineering so far on the configuration of these barriers? Does it have to be a U shape that entirely surrounds, or just at corners, or?
Sure, Vice Chair House, through the chair. It needs to be on the side that faces traffic as well as the side that is adjacent to traffic. It
Okay.
doesn't necessarily have to be on the side that is
Right.
away from traffic. That would be at the traffic engineer's discretion. They might ask for that just depending on where it's located. And the anchoring itself depends on the type of barrier that it is. They generally need to be connected to one another, sometimes anchored into the street in order to have, to meet that MASH testing standard.
Commissioner Lenvick?
Yeah. It's, right now, just off the top of my head, it's puzzling that a 6-inch high curb is adequate protection when the table and chairs are on the sidewalk. But once you get off the sidewalk, a foot off the sidewalk or whatever, all of a sudden we need to have much more substantial protection. And I don't understand how you're able to draw the line between a 6-inch high curb being protection and something else.
Sure, that's a great question,
I'm
Committee
good at that.
Commissioner.
I asked the same question
Through the
a
chair.
little while ago.
Yeah, so a couple things at play here. First of all, when we have sidewalk dining now, it is almost always up against the restaurant, so there's the path of travel that is in between. And also our sidewalks are generally not immediately adjacent to traffic either. There's usually a parking lane that's there, or a bike lane, or a shoulder of some sort. So what we're seeing and what we've seen with the temporary parklets is perhaps by virtue of the nature that they stick out and take up the space that a parked car would take up. We had a very high rate of those being struck by vehicles. We had nearly 10% of them basically were demolished by vehicles over the course of the 4 years or so that we had them out there. And so it's much similar to, a parked car getting hit, which is something that Santa Barbara has an unusually high instance of. For whatever reason, we have a very high, we do. We have a very high rate of hit and run type collisions or
Get him off the
collisions
road.
with stationary objects. And so, by virtue of the fact that you'd have people seated right next to the moving traffic and in a position that we know is very prone to having vehicle collisions, the city engineer made the determination that this was necessary for safety.
I believe we saw a presentation recently of alternative decking materials, what were they called?
That Expando sidewalk
Yeah,
or
right.
whatever.
So-
Yeah,
The pedlet,
So
yes.
in one of those views, we saw that they were taking the sidewalk, the pedestrian sidewalk, and walking on that expanded area. And the tables then were where the sidewalk,
Yeah.
pedestrians were.
That allows the tables
But-
to go up against the building.
But I would assume the city still expects to see protection of some kind when you are walking in that area.
So Commissioner, Lenvick, through the chair, that's not something that we have addressed yet. That's not something that we have seen. That would be a call for the traffic engineer to make. It's much more common to have, a sidewalk curb that ends in traffic than it would be to have dining that ends in traffic. It would also probably depend on the size of the shoulder, the bike lane, whether there was any kind of buffer there, whether or not you'd want some separation in that case.
We understand that State Street operates on a different design requirement for parklets. But the side streets, Canna Perdido, the zero block of Canna Perdido or the zero block of Figueroa or whatever, are part of State Street's planning. And I don't know why the council would not impose the same kind of requirement for State Street.
Yeah.
Don't go there,
and-
okay.
And there was a little bit of a discussion of that when this was done too, but it was like, these are separate things, going by separate, so right now, everything's separate by State Street's doing its thing, and then the others are doing this program, so. Okay, so is there any other,
Yes, Mr. Chair.
discussion, Commissioner Drew?
I just have a question. Do you foresee a proliferation of parklets?
Commissioner Drury, through the chair, I do not. We have not seen very many applications that have come in. We saw a decent number of, not all of the parklets that were out there submitted a pre-application, and of the people that did submit a pre-application, only a very small number have actually proceeded to the full application. It's not to say there won't be more in the future. New businesses may open up, they may decide that, but initially, we don't expect to see very many based on the numbers that we've gotten so far.
Good, thank you. Thank you.
All right.
And pardon my interruption through the chair to the rest of the commission. I just wanted to let you all know that in addition to Ms. Clark's presentation, we do have a document that was submitted by Commissioner Ensberg, who couldn't be here today. I believe this is something that the chair and Commissioner McClure have been working on with her as part of that state street interim working group. And then I also have pulled up the outdoor dining guidelines, the design standards, for your reference to help facilitate this discussion as well. So with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Drew?
One last quick question. Parklets increase the dining capacity of a restaurant. They're adding tables. And I know it's not our purview, but is there a moment at which that triggers other requirements such as extra restrooms, a larger kitchen, and so forth?
Commissioner, that is also through the chair, excuse me. That's also a very good question. At this point, these are not requiring a building permit review, which is what would, trigger the fixture count. We sort of wait further determinations on that possibly in the future.
Thank you.
But if I may, Mr. Chair, if you're in the coastal zone, it could trigger a coastal development permit, and the coastal zone has different regulations. So it might not trigger a building permit, but you are adding seating, which changes, again, what was approved under the coastal policies. So that's what the CDP was referring to, a coastal development permit.
All right. Okay, is there any other discussion on it? So I guess maybe we can flip through Commissioner Ensberg's email as well, just so that we're keeping in mind all the various things that are coming through. And so this document was basically the general recommendations have been that we like as simple vertical as possible, avoiding railings if possible, just doing chain and escutcheon, like you see in the top left, umbrellas and chairs and tables, and basically keeping it very European and very simple, and not a lot of structure. And so there, on these other streets, especially where there's not just pedestrians or bikes alongside but cars, it gets into all the other questions of verticals to keep from encroaching. But I think that in general, our recommendations have been, as we've been working through this, just to keep it as absolutely simple as possible. And then so it was basically chain and scansion or pots with a chain or very simple sort of planting or divisions. And then, here's were some of the ADA is also a tricky question because you've got to get clearance underneath the table of a certain distance, and which makes legs difficult as well. And so that's part of the spec process, is finding decent and very low-key furnishings. Which it's not that every table needs to be ADA, but the ones that are, they need to work too. And the idea is to try to also find things that work together, so it's not a total hodgepodge of furnishings. And there, of course, was at least one striped umbrella.
Of course. Comment on that.
You know who put this together.
Who came up with that?
She snuck it in. She did the heavy lifting, the work on it. So, and then some pots, typical plantings. So that's kind of been the in-process development along the way. So, all right, any other discussion?
That was made available to us previously.
I believe it was not, yeah, I think
Oh,
it's.
we did not receive this document until Monday, so it was not posted with the
Yeah,
agenda.
it's been, sort of been, what has been circulated in discussion with staff and with, with the various.
Again-
parties. So, thoughts on this too, I mean, it's in total draft form. I think Commissioner Ansberg couldn't be here and also wanted just, because there's a parklet discussion, everyone know, like, okay, well, where are things with what our little subcommittee was tasked with. All right. Any other thoughts on that before we go on? All right, great. Okay, so I guess thank you very much for coming to us.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, we're on to item 2, and we're right on time. Thanks for
Oh, yeah.
keep it moving. All right, so item 2, this is a new item for project design approval and final approval. It's 134 East Cannon Perdido Street. This is contributing historic resource to EPV district, proposed parklet in the public right-of-way in front of existing commercial building. Project design approval and final approval are requested. Project compatibility findings are required. All right, welcome.
Greetings.
Good,
Hi.
you? All right. Yeah, if you can introduce yourselves for the record.
All right, William Lopez, and
Alessia Gurr.
and she's the owner of Alessia's Patisserie and Cafe.
All right, great.
So we're here today.
Oh, and actually, sorry, just do a quick check. Is there any staff comments?
No announcements from staff at this time.
Okay.
and
Well,
we'll-
I will just add, again, I just want to call out, and I think Ms. Clark mentioned it, but this particular applicant, where it's located and it cannot take advantage of the outdoor dining program.
Okay, great. Thanks for letting us know. And then, as you walk us through, you will have 15 minutes. It's only a parklet, so it probably won't take that long, but yeah, walk
Should be
us
quick.
through.
Sure.
And you guys are officially the first guinea pigs, so
great.
you guys.
Here we go.
So, yeah, that would have been a slam dunk.
All right, so this is the overall site plan. So let me just zoom in there. We are literally next door to Handlebar Coffee, and in between Handlebar and I wanna
Jake and
say-
Jones, and then Rudy's.
Jake and
is on the
Jones, yeah.
corner.
Rudy's Mexican Restaurant, and literally in front of the State Historic Park, which is across the street from us. So a little bit background on this. This was built late 2021 during the whole COVID.
Oh, and actually, sorry, I tried to interrupt you. I just realized. So, do you rent from the Santa Barbara Trust for Historic Preservation? Do you lease from them?
No,
Okay, good.
it's Pueblo.
Okay. Okay, great. Okay, because I wasn't sure. All of a sudden, I realized. Oh wait, shoot, is that the property?
Pueblo Viejo Properties.
Okay. All right.
Great. Yeah, so this was built back in late 2021, meeting all code standards. Then I want to say during the selection of the materials and finishes, the parklet we were being respectful for all the finishes, and we were trying to mimic the surrounding environment. As you can see on the next slide, we were trying to match the exterior railing and the umbrella fabric. Those colors are actually mimicking across the street, the Presidio retaining walls, as you can see on the, let me see, this slide here. So as you can see that, we're trying to, make it subtle, make it blend in with the whole environment. Let me go back to the floor plan. As you can see, the parklet is currently roughly about 215 square feet. The railing is 3'6" high. There is 2, 4, 6 little planter beds on the railing hanging. And currently, as we speak, there is 9 water barriers that are being installed as we speak right now. So we're hopefully by the end of this meeting, it's going to be, installed. Let me see, what else can I tell you guys? Based on the city's requirement, it is 96 inches from the curve. We are currently 10 inches under that, so we still have some wiggle room, but we're not gonna, max out the max length of it, or width, I'm sorry. Let's see, as you can see there, handlebars literally underneath us, they do have metal railings for bike locks and so on, so there's an additional, security barrier as well. I guess that's pretty much it. I don't know, do you have any other comments or?
You hit most of them. I think we just tried to make the patio blend. Sorry. Whoa. Make the patio blend in with the environment. Personally, compared to other ones that I'd seen around Santa Barbara, I definitely think ours is one of the more attractive ones. But other than that, that's pretty much it. I mean, I feel lucky to be able to have one, so thank you.
Okay. All right, if that completes your presentation?
Yes.
All right. All right, well, we have no one in the room for public comments, so should we go to virtual?
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. We also do not have any virtual participants at this time, and we didn't receive any written correspondence for this item, so I'll turn it back over to you, Chair Grumbine.
All right. All right, to the commission for questions.
I just have one question, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Drury, then Vice Chair House.
So when it rains, what's going to happen?
Sorry.
Can you go, actually flip back to the photos as you described?
The floor's coated with a waterproof surface, and then we have also for handicap purposes, a metal grate that goes across the front, but we don't seat in the rain, so it's empty.
Okay.
Just because umbrellas aren't really enough cover
No,
for
no.
that, so we keep all the chairs and the umbrellas
In a lashing
inside the storage
rainstorm.
unit, and nobody sits on the patio during the rain.
All right, thank you.
Vice Chair House?
Do you have information on the crash barriers that you're installing?
Yes, we did. We, based on the city's requirement, we did install the mesh, I want to go back here, the approved traffic barriers, mesh traffic's water wall. Those are based on the website. I think it was the first one, and they're in white color as well.
White.
White, correct.
Mr. Chair, may I
Yeah,
add something?
please.
If I'm correct, I think all the businesses that were going to pursue an application were required to install safety things, so it's a little bit out of process that they purchased and ordered them. Normally, we would expect a project to get approval and then do that, but they got direction that they needed to install something. So to the applicant's benefit, that I wanted to provide that.
Thank you.
And question, Mr.
Okay,
Chair.
we'll go.
Okay,
Yeah,
go ahead.
Commissioner McClure and then Commissioner Jordan.
So, the water barriers, it seems like you're sensitive with the paint to the Presidio block wall, but was there an option for black on the barriers, or, because it seems like black would have been a better choice, or, I mean, white's awfully white and awfully black.
Right. Right, if I go back to the images, I know that black would have, I think,
I think it was
Oh, no,
orange
black
and
light.
white, and I mean, there is white in the front of the patio because of the barriers, but there's also white walls behind it,
yeah,
so
correct.
Okay,
it bounces off each other.
okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, I'm worried about a big black wall.
And then let's see, I noticed that your water barriers go a little bit past your building. Is that okay?
I have a photo, I don't know if that's allowed.
Yeah.
But I
We
do
have
have
City TV, we'll be able to.
A picture of well, they're just now installing them, so it won't go past.
Oh.
It'll just be,
It's being flush with
corner.
the wall
yeah,
itself.
so it'll be flush with the outside of that, so it won't.
Isn't it your
And if we
project
put
area?
it
Oh,
right
here,
in
let's-
front of Chair Grumbine, we can, City
City
TV
TV.
can zoom in. Thank you.
Uh-oh, I should put it on airplane mode.
But I guess my question is see the dashed outline of your building?
Yes, I do see that,
And then
yes.
see how your barriers are
Thanks.
beyond that? Is that
correct.
okay with,
In other words, can you expand past the
Yeah.
walls of the property line?
Right. So right now, basically, this little area, that's a buffer zone between Handlebar and ourselves. Yeah, you're right, it does go over our lease line.
But no one
and
said
technically
anything.
It's no lease line. Technically, it's just street parking.
Yeah.
I really don't know how,
I mean, there's just a gap of probably about the size of
It'll be a little bit longer than this table, but I can, I mean, if it's for people being able to pass through, there's probably two people next to each other could easily walk by without having to be
I
squeezed.
guess that point and the drainage is not really per this committee. I did have a question on drainage, but I'm kind of rethinking that because that's really not.
So, let's go Commissioner Jordan, and then I have another tied to that question.
Just have a quick information question about permitting and approvals. This is in the state park, correct?
Across the street from the state park.
So it's not in the state park boundaries? Okay.
No,
that
so
answers
you
that
can see
question.
on the left-hand side, that's like literally here.
Right,
This is the
okay.
state park.
So additional question, so you're not planning on modifying your existing parklet, is that correct?
No, because it fit.
It does-
was
It
the-
basically,
Yeah, that's the
you can,
intention.
you don't have to
No, I don't have to
change the
change it.
wood
and
or anything.
With the barriers there, I'm still below the required amount of
Okay.
space.
Correct.
And then.
Or the allotted amount of space.
If you did, I guess, to some degree, it might be, I don't know if this is actually in our purview. Where I'm going with it is the comment that we don't like horizontal boards, and we would prefer, well, my first question would be, do you even need to have your horizontal or your vertical, vertical. Do you even need your vertical railing once you have your water K-rail things? So that would be part of the question, but if you're not modifying it, I don't know that that's necessarily in our purview to have you change something, but it might be that we indicate for now, like, whatever happens now, but in the future, as you're going forward with it, it might be nicer if you have these other barriers anyways of removing it. I know it's the done well thing, but it's also done horizontally, which I know was done throughout the city, and we tend to go vertical on our pickets and things as a more historic, traditional way. But anyways, that might be a comment, but it's a sort of a question to staff, where does this fall within, if I'm understanding it right, if they don't change it, they don't have to adjust anything.
Maybe I can ask Ms. Clark, and I know she's not here, but let me see if I can get that
Okay,
answer.
I'm pretty sure I know the answer, which is
think,
if you don't change it and it's below the certain height, which it is, it's a rail height, no one has to change anything until they go to actually modify it in some ways.
I think that's correct.
Yeah, okay. Let's assume that. And then just as an FYI for the future, if, 30 years from now, when, you have 10
I'll be happy to change it, yeah.
and it's rotting out.
And just as a note, the umbrellas don't always look like that. That was at like 7 o'clock in the morning. We were setting up, so generally they do look really nice. They don't look floppy and.
Let's go back to the other end.
Yeah, okay. Other questions, or otherwise we can roll into comments on it. So I think, so you're proposing what you already have, right? So if the question for the furnishings is that acceptable, generally speaking, right? Is that what we're reviewing? I'm trying to find out what we actually are reviewing and approving.
So through the chair to the rest of the commission, you're reviewing the plans as they're proposed. And the HLC's purview is over the aesthetics of the project. So in terms of the traffic barriers and things like that, that's really, and the placement, that's outside of the HLC's purview, like as in the dimensions of the parklet itself and how far it's encroaching into the public right-of-way, but any of the aesthetics, the color and material of the barriers, the tables, chairs, umbrellas, planter boxes, all of that is under your purview.
But it's not, that's what's kind of confusing, because I get the barrier, the barrier thing is being installed now, but this is already okay by city standards. It was built appropriately.
It meets the city's standards, and they went through the full pre-application review. So maybe.
But it's already existing. They're not proposing a new thing. They're existing under what was previously set up as a way of doing it.
Right.
And what I'm just leery of is having us actually really reviewing any of this stuff or changing it, because if it was already, it's not like a violation where they're like,
Right, that's what.
It's my understanding.
Correct. This is what makes this an awkward
Yeah.
review, is that most times you're going to have a, yeah, let's just call it what it is. It's,
Yeah.
you know, I think that
Told you you should have brought it up.
you've got,
I'll come by tomorrow.
normally we see a new project, something that's not yet installed, and you get to weigh it, you know, somebody comes in with a design and you get to provide feedback to that. This is kind of after the fact and, you know,
And the only
clearly
thing-
this business owner has invested money in this and has made selections, and now, again, it still has to be approved by you, and there's no saying that you can't, you know, that you have to, but I think that's again, the awkwardness of the ask is just weird. What
Yeah.
are the things that are meaningful? And again, it's helpful to be able to see examples of what does come through. What do you think is acceptable? Again, colors, and yes, what you would be approving is all the things that Ms. Rydell just mentioned.
Okay, so that makes sense. So maybe I'll ask my fellow commissioners to make this sort of the at least a grandfathered-ish in kind of thing where this isn't a party that that wasn't playing by the rules. It's just the way that things rolled out, that it's now, they're installing literally the one thing that we had a choice about.
And who put us in this awkward position?
Well, I think this is, we're learning, so, but maybe we can comment in a way that if it was, we can make an exception in this case, but if it was from scratch, these are the types of things we'd want to see, so we don't also set a precedent where everyone says, oh, but look at them, they got the horizontal slats, and they got the plastic K-rail, and they got this, why can't I? And we can say, well, look at the video, we said we didn't like this, but we understand that the situations were particular, and we made that exception for that way, but we don't have to actually follow that going forward. How does that sound?
Non-precedent setting.
Non-precedent.
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Dre?
Well, I'll just kick off, I guess.
Yeah.
I find it as presented eminently supportable. The only quibble I have is with the color of the mesh barriers. I hope they're not blinding white. Are they creamy? Is it?
I bet they're white.
They're pretty white,
They're just pretty white?
Yeah.
yes.
Well, I
Not
worry
like a
about
pretty
them.
white.
Yeah, I mean, after about a month,
After a
when
few
the
days.
cars drive by, they'll be a little bit more creamy.
Okay. Well, that's too bad, but I find this is a very well-done, aesthetically pleasing, visually pleasing project, and I would support it. Thank you.
Yes, Commissioner Lundy.
I agree with Michael Drury on
That's
this.
Commissioner Drury to you.
Yeah, Commissioner Drury. And I realize that we have advocated for not having horizontal boards, but I'm not sure that a lot of little vertical boards are any better aesthetically. I just,
Yeah,
let me just finish. So I'm not sure that I want to stand on horizontal boards not being acceptable. The other comment that I would like to make, or suggestion, or thought for the rest of us is, I don't object, personally, as one person, to colored parasols or umbrellas or whatever. I mean, you have white or beige or whatever. I don't object to blue or orange maybe or whatever, adding a little color to the street. That's just one man's opinion. So, but otherwise, I agree with Commissioner Drury. I think it's acceptable, and I think if we had our input, we would probably look for a different color on the barriers, but we don't have.
Well, so I think we can require painting a barrier, or we can,
Color, coding, or other aesthetic
Yeah.
features.
yeah, and I was actually wondering about, like, I know, so the plastic vine stuff is, I haven't seen one that looks good.
No.
But.
Don't go there.
Yeah, but I'm wondering if there's something else, like, I don't know, this is hard to, like, hide a big ugly thing, but I don't know if there's just like burlap or some other sort of fabric way of kind of draping it, or if that would look too forced, but at least paint, I think, might be at least as a minimum, kind of like paint to match the wall like you matched the wood or something like that might be.
Even just a warm white. Something
Yeah.
not that cold industrial
Bright white.
Yeah.
But Mr. Chair, on that kind of plastic, I don't think you're going to successfully paint that. I think
Yeah,
it's going to chip and crap
I was
out.
going to say the same thing. It's probably polyethylene and
Yeah,
paint
that's
won't
the
stick
same.
to it. It'll easily scratch off.
Right. The
Yeah,
color
so,
is in the-
However, along those lines, I would suggest you talk to Sarah York Rubin, who's the county arts commissioner, and she was in charge of a project recently to cover plastic barriers at the lower end of the promenade with art that was commissioned. And I didn't think that was going to stick, but I don't care for the art, but they're sticking just fine.
But thankfully, it stuck.
Yeah.
Those are wraps.
Does she paint
Those are wraps, But
croissants?
they're sticking.
I bet you she does.
If there was a wrap on this, it'd be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, so,
It's not gonna hang on.
So further comments from me is I think this is one of the most attractive parklets around, so I commend you on that. And I think this is street furniture, it's not a fence, so that's why I have no problem with the horizontal boards. If we can go back to the, did you have a plan that showed the location of the barriers? Yeah. My thinking is that if you eliminated one of those along the street side and scrunched them together, it would pretty much be the length of your wood fence. And then those two end ones could, instead of being like this, could go like that.
this might not be totally fully accurate. 'cause-
Well, that's the question. I mean,
Right, based on site
Because
conditions.
looking at your corners, it looks like you actually are,
but if you could eliminate one of those, that would be a big help.
Okay.
So,
They're working on it right
Yeah.
now, so when this is done, I'll
yeah.
head that
And
way.
until they're filled with water, they're probably pretty easy to
Pretty easy to
move.
move,
Yeah.
Yeah, one of
And
the-
then also, I'm thinking you're going to have to do something to prop up the end that's going down into the gutter so it's level, both for flow and also it'll look better so it's not
Okay.
Sloping down.
out of parallel to your fence. I mean, Wrigley.
Commissioner Darden?
This is also, I can support this. It's been described as an awkward review, and I don't want to penalize local businesses because of an awkward transitional moment. I do, again, as has been said, refuse to see this as any kind of precedent. But I can support this. I anticipate that going forward, color will be a consistent topic of discussion. And I'm willing to go on record now saying I cannot imagine a situation in which bright orange is an acceptable color.
Yeah, and I've seen some of those around
Right.
now, so. that's-
But I'm very supportive of this.
yeah.
Yeah, other comments?
Mr.
Yeah, Commissioner McClure?
Yes, I think. it's
Sorry.
What did you say? I think this is a supportable project. Two thoughts, though. I would avoid, if maybe you were thinking of this, maybe not, no signage.
We don't
Yeah,
have any
because we
except
would
for
not
on
want to
windows.
see
No.
any sort of, whether it's paint on or add on, no signage to that. That would
I like a very, clean, modern.
That would be
look,
great.
so.
And then we brought up in the earlier discussion, some sort of lighting treatment, but that's at your option, so. But I think, all in all, it's a good approach.
You're not open for dinner, are you?
Yeah, no, we close at
3
4 o'clock.
Oh, 4
4
o'clock.
yeah.
We have only a few minutes to get there.
No,
Quick. All right, other
Let
comments?
me just say one more thing. I think you have a design aesthetic. It's very clear in your logo. And it seems like this reflects that aesthetic.
Thank you.
And your restaurant's excellent, just
Thank you.
fabulous.
For the record.
You could order online.
Okay, so then I'll just sort of closing up for my comments. So in general, I think you guys are the exception to the rule for me in terms of the plastic containers. I will be strongly opposed to any plastic barrier containers, but you're already in process. I totally understand that. So that's sort of one note from my end. And then as well, I will reiterate my horizontal, and I agree, it's furniture, so it's not as much, but it really isn't a Spanish revival aesthetic to go horizontal with boards. I also agree that it might be more distracting to have a bunch of wooden pickets, but I think that there could be other alternatives. That doesn't have to be a modern horizontal, which is done very nicely. It's a beautifully done design. It's just the language is not El Pueblo Viejo. But that's also, it was already built, and it was built not against what our previous rules were. So I think that's important that we don't make people change stuff that was previously okay. And I think that's it on my, oh, and then I agree with other commissioners' comments of coloring it in some way, seeing if it can be, and at least modified from the white. And I think where you're going with the beige or somewhere in between is a nice.
Make them disappear.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, just to Commissioner Butler's comment, any signage would have to be, go under an application for the sign committee to review. So that's more for the broader program.
Yeah, okay, great, good to know. Okay, and so any other comments? So this is for project design approval and final approval and project compatibility findings.
I will make a motion for
I think
project.
Commissioner Butler was starting to, were you? No, okay.
And pardon my interruption through the chair to the rest of the commission. If there are any comments, if you're approving as submitted, that's wonderful. But if there are any comments that you'd like to include in the motion as kind of, this is an extenuating circumstance, this is not setting precedent for the future, I would urge you to include that as comments as part of the motion. That way we have it documented in our record. Like,
I can do
we are
that.
approving this color today, but it might not be approvable in the future.
Okay. So I'm making a motion for project design approval and final approval, thanking the applicants for a very nice presentation. Want to make clear that this is the first parklet that we are reviewing, and it is somewhat of an awkward application because they got approval for the safety barriers before the review of this commission, so this does not set a precedent to approve this application. The only condition I would like to impose on it is that they explore removing one of the barriers on the street side in order that they could shorten the overall length of the safety barriers, and to explore a wrap or some other means of altering the white color to make it more compatible with the surroundings, suggesting that it blend with their wood railing.
All right.
I'll second.
And a second by Commissioner Drury.
And then I'll have you go through the project compatibility findings as well.
Oh, boy, I love to read those.
Your favorite part.
These are the project compatibility findings, consistency with the design guidelines. Yes, it mostly is, because these are parklets and they are kind of odd beings in themselves. It's compatible with the architectural character of the city and the neighborhood.
Except for the horizontal.
Well, maybe, but the applicant has made an effort to make it blend with the surroundings. The size, mass, bulk, height, and scale are not an issue. Sensitivity to adjacent landmarks and historic resources, again, the color choice helps with that. Public views of the ocean and mountains are not affected, and use of open space and landscaping is not an issue.
All right. And the seconder of it agrees with those as well?
Yes, I do.
All right.
Mr. Chair, for the first part of the motion, I would just, there was a recommendation to confirm about the safety barriers. I think if we add a clause to be reviewed and by the Public Works Department, I think that might add, just to say
cover
that
the
they have to,
bases.
just to
Subject
clarify
to
that that's the decision there.
Subject to review and
Thank
approval
you.
of the Public
Thank
Works
you. I
Department.
appreciate that.
All right. And the seconder, good? Okay. So we got a motion and a second under discussion. Any further discussion? All right. Roll call vote, please.
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. I'll take roll call vote. Commissioner Lindvik,
Yes.
Commissioner McClure,
Yes.
Commissioner Dordan,
Yes,
Commissioner Drury,
Yes.
Commissioner Butler,
Yes.
Vice Chair House.
Yes.
Chair Grumbine.
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Good job.
Thank you.
And this decision is appealable to City Council within 10 days. All right?
Thank you, appreciate it.
Wow, that was agendized for an hour.
Yeah, they thought we were
You're running-
horrible and mean. They were like
We're
the
running way
parklet
ahead.
killers.
Yeah.
3:45, so if we could
All right, so
recess until.
we're going to recess until 3:45?
Yes.
Okay, recess till 3:45. All right.
Yeah.
Enough time for a coffee.
Sitting up here.
All right, come on up here.
We have to reconvene.
Yeah.
We have to reconvene first.
All right, so calling back to order Historic Landmarks Commission, October 9th, 2024. All right, so we are on item 3. So we are on item 3. This is a new item, project design approval and final approval. This is for 1111 East Cabrillo Boulevard, located in EPV, Part 1, and adjacent to the Vista Mar Monte, designated structure of merit. This building is not a historic resource. Proposal to construct a new cupola painted to match the existing building to screen a new telecommunication facility. So project design approval and final approval are requested. Project compatibility findings are required.
And staff has a brief announcement through the chair to the rest of the commission. As you know from a previous review at the same location, this is not related to the review that you did earlier this year. This is a completely different applicant, different application, and I have not seen a resubmittal from that applicant, so you should review this application individually without regard to that other application. Just a reminder that the commission's purview is over the screening structure around the telecommunication facility, not the antenna itself, and that these telecommunication facilities are subject to 90-day timelines. So just keep that in mind as you're reviewing and continuing. I believe the shot clock for this one expires in late November, so you do have the ability to continue if you have comments, but just make sure that you're gearing towards either an approval or a denial before that shot clock timeline runs out. And then if you have any other questions, I'm available. And just a reminder that this structure is proposed on the non-historic building on the parcel.
And just to be clear, the other one you referenced is the one that had like eight chimneys? Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. And that has not been approved and they've not returned. So
Okay.
you can review this one individually.
Order. All right. Okay, great. Thank you. And so we'll go, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself for the record.
Sure. My name is Ryan Lee.
Oh, there we go. Preston.
Hi, my name is Ryan Lee. I'm here to represent the Triad Group on behalf of Dish Wireless.
Okay, thank you. And then you'll have 15 minutes. You don't have to take the whole time, but you'll have 15 minutes to walk us through your plans and give us your presentation.
Oh, okay. Okay, so basically what we're looking to do is install a...
You don't have to keep holding it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So basically what we're really trying to do is install a brand-new wireless facility on top of the rooftop on the non-historic section of the hotel. The design is essentially a Spanish-style cupola that would mimic the existing wireless facility previously installed by AT&T. Let me get you an elevation. So here is a close-up of the actual cupola itself. The actual cupola is going to be, I believe it's around 16 feet above the roof line. And it's going to give you a maximum elevation of 50 feet. 16 feet, 6 inches will be the size of the cupola. We're looking at taking about 10 by 10 lease space here, to which our antennas would be installed and screened by FRP. Our equipment would be placed underneath, and everything would be concealed with the FRP textured to match the existing stucco that's on the hotel currently. In order to kind of match the Spanish style, we've decorated a tile pattern on top of the cupola to reflect kind of the historic and Spanish feel of the area. If you could take a look at some of the elevations that we'd be looking at. We're looking at a west elevation here, followed by a south elevation to the bottom. Also, we've created some photo renderings here as well. So this kind of gives you a view looking northwest towards the site. I believe this is off of Cabrillo Boulevard. Just to kind of give you an idea of what it'd be looking like for the passersby. That's kind of actually where I was prior to the meeting, unfortunately.
They have good cocktails there, don't they?
I did not get a chance to experience that yet. So this is kind of what we're looking at from there. This is a little bit from further down the street. As you can see, the AT&T cupola is here to the right, and we're here to kind of mimic it and maybe even bring a little balance to the whole elevation as in general. And lastly, this is going to be coming from behind. It looks like, I'm not quite sure, but it's looking south towards the building. And as you can see, here's the AT&T, and in comparison, ours is a little smaller, but hoping to, again, bring balance to the hotel, so that way there's not just this one here sticking out. We did bring a materials board with us as well that we provided. If I could grab that, yeah. So materials board, I'm not sure if you guys want to pass this around or if I could.
Here, yeah, we can put it right here for now, and then we'll
Sure.
pass it around.
Don't injure
All
the
right,
commissioners.
So the stucco is there to kind of match the existing stucco that's already on the hotel. That would be placed throughout the entire cupola. And then the remainder would be the tile colors that you see here. So in order for us to mimic a Spanish-style mosaic.
All right.
The colors are there to kind of match exactly what AT&T did before, as well as there was an existing chimney type feature that's on the hotel currently. And I don't have a picture of it here, unfortunately, but there is one to the left of this building. And it kind of has almost the same kind of design as far as a rooftop.
And just for clarity, while you're, so the AT&T one is existing and it's using the exact same materials, is that, or is it
I don't know if
similar?
it's the exact same, but
Okay.
it's very similar.
Got it.
And we're mimicking kind of the overall design of it, because we figured it got approved before, so we wanted to kind of match what was already there, so that not to take away from the aesthetics of the building.
Okay.
That'd be a question for staff. Do you have any idea when that was approved?
I do not. I don't have that information available right now.
You gentlemen like to? Okay. Well, I'll give it back to you.
Sure. I'm just going to leave it up here. Just
Okay.
take a look at it. So the photo here even kind of gives you a better idea of what the textiles will look like on top.
That's a picture of the AT&T one?
No, this is what we kind of
Photo
proposed
sim,
one with.
okay.
And that's kind of basically all I had. It's pretty simple. We're doing our best here to kind of make sure that everything blends in the way that it normally does, as well as provide additional service for future Dish Wireless patrons.
All right. Okay, if that concludes your presentation? All right, well, I'll go open to public comment.
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. At this time, I haven't received any speaker slips, and I'm not seeing any movement. We also do not have any virtual participants, and we didn't receive any written correspondence for this item, so I'll turn it back over to you, Chair Grumbine.
All right, so there's no public comment. We'll come that back to the commission for questions.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Drury.
so how does the proposed tower match up with the AT&T in terms of height?
In terms of height, the AT&T one is, I was just out there, the AT&T one seems much taller than the one that we're representing. The AT&T one might be based on my estimation from being on the ground, from the roof level up, I would estimate it to be anywhere between 25 and 30 feet. We're looking about half that.
Okay.
That's 16 and a half.
And the girth of the building itself is about the same as the AT&T one?
Ours is also going to be significantly smaller because of the roof line on this one's a little bit smaller as well. So AT&T is looking probably at a footprint of, again, this is just by my naked eye looking, but it's probably looking like maybe a 20 by 20 footprint, and we're looking at more of a 10 by 10.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Mr. Chair.
All right, Vice Chair House.
So first question is, can the transmitters or whatever they're called, the antenna?
Yes.
Can they be lowered? I see that the bottom of them is quite a bit elevated. If we go to the.
Oh, to go to the, yes, give me 1 second.
Yeah. Yeah,
This
there
is
we
what you're
go.
talking about, right? Yeah, because the antennas are located in this area.
Well, actually, I guess that doesn't show us relative to the roof.
I got you right here. So here are the antennas.
Okay, this one, this lower, either of those elevations show the bottom of the antennae and the top of the roof level. So do they need to be that high above the roof?
They do. So basically how the antennas work is they kind of shoot outwards and then kind of flow down. So we're kind of in the middle of the roof area here. So if we were any lower, it would cause something called shadowing.
No, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, it would cause shadowing with the antennas. Also, we wanted to minimize the footprint on the roof in its entirety. That's kind of why that's why all the equipment that's located below. And it also gives us the elevation needed to meet the rad center for the frequency.
Another question would be, that thing that looks like a grill in the upper part, just below the pyramidal roof.
Yeah, it's
What
purely
is that?
decorational. It's purely decorational
Okay.
at first.
I mean, they almost look like solar panels on that rendering
Is it
there.
planted on or is it inset? Because, yeah, there it looks like it's planted on.
Or
It's
do you
like-
have a detail of it to show what it is?
I do not. It's my thought that it's going to be inset. So it should be
But it's
flush.
decorative, you don't need that.
Correct.
Okay. Which kind of answers another question. It seemed like on the south elevation, I didn't see that. And I don't know, it looks like from these elevations, the intent is to have it on four sides, but one of the renderings, yeah, I think it was one of the photo sims. It didn't have anything. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. And then also, in that rendering, the roof is much more steeply pitched, and these photo sims, it seems much shallower. So what is your intent?
The intent would actually be go with what's on the drawing. So this rendering's probably not as,
Okay.
it's probably
Let's
should be a
go
little bit
back to
flatter.
the detailed drawing and see what that looks like.
Yeah.
So it's kind of somewhere in between, or probably more like the renderings, I
Yeah.
guess.
I
'cause
think so, too.
The renderings, you're looking up at an angle.
So, more questions about the screen thing. So what is that meant to be? Is it like a grill that you're thinking, or what was the, and what is its purpose?
I think the thought
Besides
is to
decorative.
potentially mimic a window.
Oh, okay,
Potentially mimic a window,
okay.
easily removed, I would
Yeah,
imagine.
so, but what is, so, look, can you go to your drawings, your elevations of it?
Sure.
So what is, for the antennas to work well, they can just shoot right through the plaster thing?
It's going to
stuff?
shoot through the FRP, the fiberglass. So
Okay, so the fiberglass could have anything, that was trying to mimic an inset window, but could they just be openings as well in that? Like, as if it was a chimney or something, as opposed to a tower?
Then you'll see the antennas and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then that was gonna be my next question.
Right.
Can they be painted?
the antennas can definitely be painted.
Okay.
If you wanted to leave that as an opening gap, I don't know.
Like a smaller opening, but
Sure. I mean, that's definitely a doable possibility. I think what we would probably want to do is something closer to what the photosim rendered, which didn't contain this.
yeah. So could it also be, if it was more like a chimney, a solid chimney, just plaster, could you just remove the top altogether and still work fine?
Yeah, I mean, we wanted to include the textiles on
Yeah.
the top as.
I see where you were kind of going with it, but it was also sort of like as a tower, as a 10-foot wide tower with windows in it, but if you instead go towards something else? I just want to know all the options kind of
Sure.
like for.
Yeah. All those options that you played out are definitely doable
Okay.
within Dish's realm.
Okay. And then-
Mr. Chair?
Yep,
I have a
Commissioner
question. So are these drawings to scale?
Yes, they are.
Because it seems like a really dominating shape, sitting on top of buildings
It's
that are already.
It's a tower size, it's 10 foot wide, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the other one is 20.
Yeah, so they're real tower elements.
What other one is 20?
The AT&T one.
The
Oh,
AT&T
roughly.
one's roughly 20 by 20,
Oh.
all the way up.
Could you put a real window in there instead of that grill is? Could you like spec a regular window and put it in there?
That I'm not entirely sure. I'm pretty sure we can. Due to the fact that the frequency is going to be shooting outwards, there'll probably be an issue with the glass.
Okay.
It's going to need to be fiberglass.
Or an opening, just,
Yeah, or an opening, with the rest of it being fiberglass around it to shoot through.
okay. All right, other questions? Okay, let's roll into comments. And maybe even more of a bit of a discussion.
Oh, one other
to try to-
question. Do the moldings that you show on there, do they relate to any other moldings on the building?
Which molding?
The half-round moldings, yeah, above and below the
plaster
grill.
moldings, yeah.
Not to my knowledge, no.
Okay.
Other than the fact that it kind of goes with what AT&T already has up there.
Okay, so let's roll into maybe a comment and discussion a bit, because because this involves equipment that is not just as easy as, basic architecture, but has other things. It might end up being more questions as well. But
Yeah.
so what's everyone's thoughts on
Well,
this?
Mr. Chair, I'll jump
Vice
in.
Chair House.
I mean, obviously, it's not an easy thing to say, yeah, this is great. It just seems kind of overwhelming. It's not a foreign object necessarily, and I'm not sure what to suggest to make it fit better. But for one thing, those half-round moldings seem kind of amateurish. I don't know if the person that drew this up, I don't know if that's you? Okay, studied the architecture, to make it relate more to details on the building. I don't know that there are a lot of details on the building to mimic. The opening, the window, the grill-like thing is not working at all, and, it might be best without it at all. If it were to be an actual opening, it can't just be the thickness of the fiberglass panel, it would have to return inward, so it looks like thick masonry. So that might present other problems, but that is certainly an area you need to study more. I could not support painting that pyramidal top with paint because that's gonna fade. That's just not gonna hold up. And so it would need to be actual tile.
Or it could be the same material, plaster material, right? You could do a plaster cap. Because you can.
Oh, you mean without the pattern in it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's an option too, is
Yeah.
just go all plaster with it.
Yeah. I guess that's enough enough
Yeah,
comments from
sorry,
me.
initial thoughts. Yeah, someone else want to jump in?
Mr. Chair?
Yes,
I'll just
Mr.
jump
Chair.
in briefly. Yeah, I know that you say the drawings are in scale, and I trust your judgment there, but it just seems completely out of scale. It seems much too big. I think it'd be more comfortable and closer to approval if you had a statement, a visual statement that showed the AT&T tower as well.
The plans of that, so we could make a comparison. I mean, I did not know that that was an addition. So it would be nice to know more about it.
It just seems too big to me, without anything to compare it to, because there it is, a big.
So, sort of folding into this, I think part of my question is, what is it? Okay, so what is it that it's pretending to be, right? So what does it want to be? So right now you're showing windows, and that seems fairly appropriate, a 10-foot wide tower, as a tower, where people would actually go. The other option is it could be trying to be a chimney, but then it's a 10-foot wide chimney, and, unless you have like Hearst Castle size 10-foot tall fireplaces, why is a chimney that big? So I think part of the question is, what is it trying to pretend to be, at least? Is it a tower where you go and do a lookout, but you just, no one realizes that you actually can't, there are no stairs there? It might work as a 10-foot wide tower, but then it needs to really be designed as a tower more, and I think you need to look at examples of Spanish towers in Santa Barbara, and ways in which that, with openings, and whether there are windows or not, or grills or something to screen, that's fine. But I think it needs to have that language of a thing. If it's a tower, then of a tower. And if you can get it to look where you have openings or you're not actually seeing, and you can study and make sure that you're not really seeing, or it's mostly skewed as you move around your model or whatever, the antennas, and you can kind of hide them in the corners, and there's just one little opening, it looks like a little lookout, that might work. But I think that's what I'm struggling with, is what is this thing actually, architecturally, what is it trying to be?
That is the big question.
So, maybe, yeah, so that's where, yeah, if you can kind of get it to work and look like a Spanish tower, observatory tower or something, then that gives you kind of a place to start. I don't know. Other thoughts?
Well, I think certainly the molding needs to be manipulated. That round molding is just not working at all. There needs to be, if you're going to have that, any kind of detail like that, it needs to be better modeled, basically.
I was going to make a comment along the same lines, that the one below the window, if it were more of a cornice or something, then it would lessen the shaft height, and it would might have better proportions. And then, where the pyramidal roof then comes down, that needs to be a more traditional molding instead of just some half-round thing. But not two of them the same thing,
Yeah,
the same
typically you
size.
don't repeat molding profiles, and usually the top molding is something else, as opposed to, that half round is usually a connector molding, so it oftentimes is found midway in things. But then the top round, usually is, or the top molding is usually a different profile, whether it's a cove or.
We're referencing this.
Yeah, that one.
And so you're saying that normally there wouldn't be a second?
Well, no,
Of
it
the
would
same
be
shape.
something probably bigger. It would be different, and it would probably be taller and more elaborate shape.
I agree. The moldings have got to be traditional in their shape, OG curves and whatever. And the top one would hang out beyond the start of the pyramid roof. The pyramid roof would be back, 6 inches or so. I don't know that you need to have an opening, personally. If you had the lower molding there, then it generally is a termination for a bigger base. The base would come up to be a little larger than the molding, and then the top element would be in again 6, 8 inches or whatever. There'd be a transition. That's a transition molding of some kind, and I think that might work. If there was to be an opening in that upper element, I think that a traditional kind of screening would be appropriate. Half barrel, half top,
Yeah,
tiles.
that's a good point, yeah.
And you don't need a lot of it. I mean, you want to have a lot more corner plaster, and then, this inset panel of half-round stack venting there, and I think that'd be more than adequate. I mean, you could do, flat tile that you're stacking at 45-degree angles there, a number of different kinds of infills that would be traditional.
Yeah, but isn't that kind of saying this is a chimney now?
Well, it's a vent.
Yeah.
It's a vent, and a chimney or whatever, it's not a chimney, it's a vent. It's a vent structure, and you gotta let air get in and out, and how do you screen that? If it was a garage, you would screen it with these, half tiles or whatever. But right now, I would not vote in favor of that element there as it is now.
And I suspect that any kind of terracotta tiles are not going to be friendly with the radio frequency, so.
Not on the sides, no. On the roof, it'd be fine.
Right, yeah, so.
Well, I suppose you could
replicate them out of plastic, and
yeah.
it's probably just not
I
going
don't
to
know.
work.
But if that doesn't work, I would rather see a blank wall there.
Yeah.
I'd rather see a blank wall.
Oh, you know what might work is doing it in a plaster grill. So plaster, meaning this kind of plaster, and do it
Just a
with,
texture
it'll
to
have
this.
to go in, so it's not just a flat grill that's punched. You'll have to actually show some depth, even if it doesn't seal on the backside. But
I think I understand what you're
yeah,
saying.
you can do the same material, then you at least have a plaster grill that has a pattern and look at some patterns. And then it looks like a big vent stack, and you can't actually see the antennas within it.
Wouldn't interfere with the antenna if we did that?
No, because it's all of the.
All material would be made out of the fiberglass material.
Can we see the picture again of the AT&T one? Because I seem to remember that was a two-step thing. There was a broader base and then it stepped in.
So what we're
Oh,
looking at, yeah, it's this. It's almost like a layer cake.
And it's done really as a tower. Like that's like a very much a tower where people can go into it, you know.
And there's something you
Motif.
walk around on the top
Yeah,
around that
you
spire.
shoot arrows
Yeah.
from up there.
Yeah. Drop buckets of hot oil.
Exactly, boiling oil over the top.
Yeah.
If this was designed as,
defend it.
to imply it was a vent structure.
No, but this is really implying that this is like the tower, a person structure, right, to go up in. If you're gonna do a 10-foot wide vent, I mean, it could be for really big buildings or for some different use that it had to have a giant vent, but it just needs to be a little bit more believable, I think.
I think if your architect watches the video, hopefully they'll get the idea of what we're looking for. And
I think so.
And yeah, and look at some good plaster grills in town or whatever, and even the top doesn't necessarily have to be tile. I mean, I don't know what other people feel about it, but you could just go plaster with it.
Yeah.
And then not
Because if the
draw
angle,
it
if
too
the
much
pitch
attention.
is as shallow as it shows in the elevations, you're not gonna notice
See
the
much,
detail
yeah.
up there anyway.
How are people with that? Or it could be red tile. You could do clay tile up there if it's not a problem. That could be nice
Sure.
as a little.
To mimic the existing tile that's on the roof now.
Yeah. And if that material can be, because then it'll actually feel real, because you'll have at least the real tile top on both. So that might be.
The structure can support that.
Just a very quick comment. When I went through these drawings, I understood what the program was and how the antennas worked. But the drawings are not persuading me that this is a work of architecture. And that's the whole discussion of the moldings, openings, and the cap, so that I'm just seconding what my fellow commissioners have said. It needs to look like a work of architecture and not just a screen up there.
Okay. Okay, so let's see. So the project design approval and final approval are requested. So currently, I'm not hearing that as on the table for today. But I think we can probably give you some pretty clear direction. And
I'll take it.
yeah, and then you can come back and.
I appreciate it.
Okay. So.
Pardon my interruption, through the chair to the applicant, if you're continued, to be continued 2 weeks, you would need to resubmit on Monday. Is that too quick of a turnaround, or would you prefer 4 weeks?
This Monday?
Yes.
We could do an indefinite, right? And then.
I would prefer a date certain continuance, just because we're on that time.
Oh, gotcha.
That
Yeah.
shot clock.
I probably need the month.
The 4 weeks, sounds
Yeah.
good, thank you.
Okay.
That way we can produce
Yeah.
photo simulations and
Yep.
probably a new materials board.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So the sort of summary of comments are, and everyone feeling good with matching the red tile roof as the roof?
It's a good suggestion.
As a basic. Okay.
One final comment. Your drawings need to have, according to California law, need to have the name of the engineer or the architect on the drawings, indicating who's drawing them. And, I don't see that now, not that it's important, but at some point, the building department will catch you on that.
Right. As far as the zonings drawings go, we typically do the engineering stamp and the architectural stamp when we submit the building. So we were just trying to get this thing through first, and then we'll get them stamped.
And Mr. Chair, maybe some sort of an elevation showing both towers.
Okay.
An extended
AT&T
streetscape.
And the proposed tower.
To kind of give you a better feel of
Yeah,
of what it's going to
yeah.
look like on the whole street.
Yeah.
That's an extended streetscape.
Okay. All right, so, okay, so we'll start with thanking the applicant for coming, and we're, and providing all these things, including the three-dimensional simulations. So the commission is feeling that, that in general, the following changes should be revised and then brought back. Changes should be made and brought back. So one is change the roof material to match the existing clay tile roof and pitch. And if there's different pitches, pick one, but match up one of the pitches of the roofs. To change the window, instead of a window opening in the tower, to have a plaster grill, and to look at and bring some examples of historic grills from around town that would be that you propose.
Okay.
For the molding, the moldings to be restudied, the top and the middle band molding, as well as the top molding to be restudied, and use more traditional historic moldings. And if you look around town, I think you'll see what we're talking about.
Okay.
And then, let's see, I think, I would say also to thicken the corners of the tower. Right now, there's only a little bit of plaster showing, to thicken those corners as well, and then put the...
But I mean, he means wider, more plaster.
More plaster. Right now, like your opening for the window, and if you just had switched that out to the grill, they're too skinny on the corners. It's like it's kind of flimsy plaster. You know what I mean? Like it looks like it's like maybe 6 inches.
You want these to be
Yeah, thicken, widen up those corners.
Couple feet or whatever.
Yeah, if it's 10 foot wide, make
So
them
then
at least a foot.
then the grill would be smaller.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
I see. Okay. So we probably just remove this one and this one.
Well, you look at your grill patterns.
Wouldn't be that
Don't even have that.
Right. No, as far as the plastic.
Approximately, yes.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
But when you look at the geometric grill patterns, there's also going to be certain things that fit nicely and don't. So just
Right.
that'll dictate a little bit of the wiggle room. But the main thing is your corners need to just feel stronger by feeling wider. So widen the corners of plaster. Let's see. And anything else?
Mr. Chair.
And to have elevations, street elevations showing the AT&T, and streetscape and for comparable.
Sure.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Question for staff. Is it possible you could bring up item 6 from the consent calendar? Because there's a good illustration of a plaster grill.
Really nice.
Yeah. A picture is worth 1,000 words.
Mission Ridge Road.
Yeah.
That one might be a bit on the illustrated plan.
Actually, it would fit pretty well there, but, it could be any number of things, but it gives the idea, so we're not just
Mr.
trying to
Chair?
describe it in
Yes.
words.
Commissioner Leonard.
The other comment that I might make is it's, this tower is set right in the middle of the building. If it was 1/3, 2/3, the grace or romance of that building might be a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
There's an example of a plaster grill.
See the person with the...
An elevation.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, if your tower was
I see what you're saying.
And that's not the best image because, line work on a CAD drawing.
And actually, if you go to the photograph where
Let's go to the photo, yeah.
there we go. Yeah, and if you can zoom into that person, yeah, great.
That's how it should feel.
So
It's not going to be as deep as that.
It needs to
but-
return back at least a couple inches, right, so that it feels like has depth to it, even if it doesn't.
Okay.
And my comment is if the tower was moved down, 20 feet or whatever, it wouldn't be dead set in the center of the building. It would be off a
You
little
have that
bit.
flexibility to move it to a different location?
I would have to work with the landlord, but I think that might be possible.
Yeah, just. That's a good idea. It would feel better. It would be some
Yeah.
romance to the thing.
Looks like it landed,
Okay, so I'll add that comment to look at shifting it So it's off-center and preferably up to 1/3, 2/3.
Is there a preference in terms of which side of the building you guys would want to see it on?
Towards the back, probably.
Well,
It seems to be pretty strong towards, as a front move. I don't know, it tends to be.
What is the back? Is that to the left on the south elevation?
That would be to the left, yeah.
I would move it longitudinally.
Right, so we're talking about moving it
up or down.
here, maybe down 20 feet
Yeah,
this way.
that way or the other way. One of them.
Well, there's a
yeah.
chimney on the other side.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'd also have to reevaluate what's actually on the roof
Yeah,
itself.
sure.
Okay.
Did you mention about the moldings above and below the?
I believe so. Was that captured?
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay. And any other comments?
Lots of luck.
So I'll make a motion for a 4-week continuance with those comments.
All right. And do I have a second?
He's working
All right,
on it.
Commissioner Butler.
Okay.
He was giving you a chance.
Slow-mo.
He's going to be gone for
I second the motion.
Okay, I got a motion and a second under discussion. Any more discussion? All right. Roll call vote, please.
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. I'll take roll call vote. Commissioner Dorden,
Yes.
Commissioner Jury,
Yes.
Commissioner Butler,
Yes.
Commissioner Lindvik,
Yes.
Commissioner McClure,
Yes.
Vice Chair House.
Yes.
Chair Grumbine.
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so we are on to item 4. This is a new item for concept review, 628 State Street, located in EPV. Proposal to construct one 520 square foot building, one 480 square foot building, a trellis, and an outdoor dining area. Project includes the demolition of existing trellises, site walls, fencing, palm trees, and landscaping. No final appealable action will take place at this meeting. Project compatibility findings will be required for project design approval. All right, so welcome. If you would introduce yourself for the record.
Sure thing. Kevin Moore, architect for the owner.
All right, and to staff, do we have any comments?
No comments from staff at this time.
All right, great. So you'll have 15 minutes.
Great.
And, yeah, you don't have to take it all, but walk us through.
All right. So this is a new building on, adjacent to the Paseo. Zoom in there. So it's a little hard to see here, but the Habit Grill is on this side. There's the Paseo that goes through to Dargan's and then continues on around to the parking lot and then around the back of World Market. So we're talking about this little strip of land there. So let's go to the photos here. Oop.
Was this the former Zello's?
It's adjacent to that. So just to orient you, this is,
Never kid one, or the ever have it is.
yeah,
But
so here's the Habit. The Paseo goes back there, and then you have this. Oh, come on. Okay. And then on this side,
that's the former Zello's.
this is Blush, or formerly was Blush.
Yeah.
And they had openings that went out to the patio out
Right.
here. And there's some structures and things like that. So they're actually separate properties, strangely enough. So Blush will remain what was formerly Blush. It will remain what was formerly Blush. And
Blushing.
we are just working on this parcel over here.
Okay.
So, and let's see if we can get down there.
Which includes the Habit?
The Paseo does not, divides these properties. So the Habit's on its own little wedge of property.
I mean, what you're working on includes the Habit, or is that a separate property?
No.
Okay, so you're just the
Separate.
Paseo?
We're working on this parcel that's over
Okay,
here
all right,
on,
I
it
see.
is Blush.
Okay.
So these openings will be, are covered up now. All of the structures that are within these site walls will be removed. There's some old trellises and remnants of what Blush used to be. And here's looking more down the Paseo. So you can see this is more current. And site walls, fencing, this trellis work, and some landscaping. And then if we turn, we go down the Paseo, we turn and we look back towards State Street, You can see this is the habit over here, and some of the site walls and everything on this side. At the rear of the property, this is Dargan's over here. The Paseo leads out towards the street here and then continues back behind you. The parcel kind of cuts across, the property line kind of cuts across diagonally here. So some of this is on the property. And then if you're a little bit further down Dargan's way there and looking back, this is the backside of the Blush building here. So it's fairly tall. And there's a little stairway that goes up to some sort of office up there. So that's our photos. We'll switch back to the plan set. So the existing site plan looks like this. So we have State Street out here, the Paseo running down the middle, all the way around the back here. Dargan's is back here. You can see it's a little bit of a regular shape. It kind of has a jog there, and then it kind of comes back in.
Where's that stair that went to the upstairs?
It's over here somewhere.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So right now there's no division in between these. So there will be a little fence that we add there, a little wall actually. So the proposal is to construct a little building, sort of a very petite building in the front that will have a restaurant component. Then there will be a separate structure in the back for restrooms and a little office space. And then in the middle there, we're leaving open for chairs and tables and dining. To do that, we need to update the site plan. So remove some of the fencing and walls up to this point, and remove some of the landscape elements that are kind of along the State Street side and some of the Paseo side. So if we go up, I guess it's up to our proposed site plan, you can see our restaurant building is up front here, our little outdoor dining area with the trellis, and then our building B is the restrooms and office. And utility space, some storage space back there. Okay, so let's get into the plan. So up front, we had to divide it up into two pieces here. So we have the kitchen zone here facing State Street. It's going to be Italian with some pizza and things like that. So we wanted to create some theater for the street. So we have a large inset window along the street. Hopefully they'll be able to peek in there and see all the action and fun parts of it. The customer access would be down this side to an order and pickup window here. Again, a big inset window. And then they would head on down here and outdoor seating out here. And then we also have this bar area that would open up with some sort of folding window or something like that, some operable window that would open out, so you can sit here and hang out and see people go by and all that. So, and then in the back, the hand works sometimes and sometimes it doesn't. In the back we have our the other building, which has a little storage component, men's and women's restroom, and then a little office space as well. And the site wall that's there now would continue to be there. There's an existing gate that would remain there as well. All of the utilities and everything would remain back here, and we would probably have some utilities, probably a panel or two back here as well, kind of tucked away and hidden. This is a pretty tall wall. It's like six foot something. And go to the elevations. Here's kind of the Paseo elevation in total. If we can get it in there. Almost. So we have our element up front, kind of pops up, a molding around it, inset, deeply inset window with tile base, a roofed barrel tile roof section that kind of mimics the habit overhang with post and beam, and then a heavy timber trellis that comes across there, and then our other building back here is sort of a smaller version of this. Trying to keep it simple. Some playful details, a little swoop detail on a parapet back here. All of our roof equipment will be tucked in behind this parapet here, which is another reason it's a little taller. And here's kind of the back of this building, so this zone right here. So that roof wraps around and would terminate into the side of the blush building. And then on a little bit of a blow up here on the front building. This would attach, obviously, there. And then here, I think it looks like this needed to be centered. There's something going on a little off here. The intent was that this glazing would be centered in this mass. And the back building is fairly straightforward, as I said. Some simple volumes. This is the east elevation, so essentially looking at the side of it there. And then here's the more Paseo side of it. So we have our 2 restroom entrances there, entrance into the office there. Nice window there. And that's the interior shot. So if you're sitting on the property looking back at that rear building, that's what you would see. And then just a couple of sections to give you a sense of the heights. So this is roughly the parapet height of the blush building back there. Our parapet's slightly below that, 17'6", giving us a nice well here to hide everything. And this is section through the bar area. You can see that roof comes down. Just a typical 4 and 12 slope on that tile. So again, it's just a very simple, small building looking to kind of complete the bookends on this paseo that runs through here. I'm trying to pick up on some of the elements that are existing from the habit. And that concludes my presentation.
All right, sounds good. Okay, so now let's go to public comment.
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. At this time, I haven't received any speaker slips, and I'm not seeing any movement. We also do not have any virtual participants, and we didn't receive any written correspondence for this item, so I'll turn it back over to you, Chair Grumbine.
All right, to the commission for questions. Any questions?
Mr. Chair, could we see the photos of the habit again? So I can understand that building a little more.
Let's see, there's this photo. So you have the sloping kind of shed element, heavy.
So it doesn't have any cornice on the building part of it, it's just got...
It doesn't, it has a little flourish here. It's hard to see it in there, but it's tucked in that tree. There's sort of it kind of rises up here. I think they have a sort of a chimney-ish.
The adjacent building has a cornice, but...
Right.
And are your drawings just conceptual, or are you going to have more of a profile to your cornice, or is it as simple as it's depicted?
No, I think we could add some more detail and relief in that.
Okay. That's my question.
All right, other questions?
A couple of quick questions. You mentioned the building Bs will have the restrooms in it. Kitchen staff working in building A will, if they need to go to the bathroom and wash their hands, will go to building B?
Yes.
Okay. Next, we've got a long linear site, can that whole site be secured and locked? Is there a controlled perimeter, or is it, oh, okay.
No, unfortunately, to get the openness and that open
Right.
feel that we want, we can't have the fencing and all that. So the owner's aware of that, he understands the issues, and will
Okay.
work with that.
Those are
All
my
right.
questions.
Other questions?
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Commissioner Butler.
So regarding the restrooms, I assume the restrooms are only available to patrons of the restaurant?
That's the intent, yeah.
Because this is just a first glance, but they seem very present in that Paseo area to be visible to the general public walking by. Am I correct in that?
Well,
I guess you can see where I'm going with that. I'm just thinking you're going to
I
go.
imagine we can put some sort of combination on those doors.
So actually, and tied to that, is that wall and railing, so that you can see to the, because in elevation, I saw the wall and railing, and so that's where it is that's the outer perimeter of it?
Correct. Those are existing site walls with the railing on it.
And that's existing?
Existing
Okay,
terrain, yeah.
gotcha.
I have another question.
Yeah.
How many trees are being removed, and are there any new trees?
So we would be removing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Some of them are palms and some of them are, get a sense here. Some of them are sort of short palms, some of them are kind of a double palm. So they're pretty much just palms.
And are there any new trees anywhere?
We're not proposing any new trees. We would refresh that landscaped area up front here. And this one would remain, and all of this would remain as is. So we're really just clearing this corner and this edge right here.
All right, other questions? All right, let's roll into comments. Who wants to kick us off? Commissioner Levitt?
Yeah, it's here for
Concept.
concept or whatever, and I have no problem with the project the way it is. I can live with the moldings, I can, so on and so forth. I realize that the drawings aren't totally complete from the sound. We don't see the rafter tails, but we see them in sections, so we know they're going to be there, and so on and so forth. But I have no problem with the project. My only request is that you deal with any fire protection, double check valves, so on and so forth, up front at the beginning. If they're concealed, landscaped, or whatever, provide adequate landscape space for them.
Not up front, meaning putting them up front.
Well, wherever they are. I mean, the landscaping at State Street is so minimal that you can't really put piping and such in there and have landscaping as well. So
Right.
we got to resolve that problem. But
Understood.
otherwise, I think it's a good project.
Understood, the intent is that they would be at the rear.
Yeah, that's fine. And it probably makes more sense than putting them on a paseo that you can't get a fire truck to, so.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I have no problem with the project. It's fine.
All right, other comments? Okay, I'll jump in since I agree. I think it's going very well, and it's now down to just minor design elements. But I do think there's, as you're going forward here, so there's some. So if you can go to elevations. So Commissioner Lemick pointed out one in terms of rafter tails and elevations are missing, but we know that on the side is showing it. So.
His section shows rafter tails on that building.
That's the
Section?
The section shows rafter tails on that building. They're not showing the
Yeah,
elevation.
no, and they're showing on the one side of the elevation, but
And
just.
he has a column there which isn't touching the bottom of the beam.
Yeah, it's a hover column.
I'll ask him to take care of it.
No. Yeah, so, and as you look at the rafters, looking at the rafter tail profile, what it is, it could be simple, but also just probably extending a little further than what you currently are showing. And then also the spacing appropriately, of course.
They may want gutters on it, who knows? Those
Yeah.
details will come as he gets into it, yeah.
In terms of the window muntins, The one on the, let's see, that's the side one, the left one. That one looks good in terms of breakup and horizontality. That one's a little funky. If you want to go with the big open window, then do it as a storefront window. Maybe don't do any division below and just go all glass storefront as a 1920s, 30s, State Street facing thing. And then do muntins on the other more, operable ones. Or go with do the breakup like you did on the side there, and have your muntins break it down to the more regular rectangles. So anyways, those are minor things, but this is because everything else looks good.
And Mr. Chair?
Yeah, Commissioner Drury.
The windows should be set back in.
Yeah, it looks like
look like
he's
they
got
are.
a shadow going, so, so thickened walls, and I didn't take a look at it in plan, but I'm assuming your walls are at least 8 inches.
That's the intent, yeah,
Yeah.
especially on these front windows too.
Yeah,
Mr. Chair, I have one.
yeah, Commissioner.
So behind the trellis on the Blush facade, that's just, like if Blush wanted to paint a tiger on that or something, that, like, you have no control over that piece of plaster.
Well, I think the HLC would have something to say about it.
Well, if you call it art, we don't.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing you can propose to make that a little more interesting other than just flat plaster wall.
I'm sure the owners can work something out together as far as planting or something like that potentially. Yeah.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Vice Chair House.
Obviously, it's a very simple building, but I think the detailing needs to be impeccable and a bit more imaginative. The cornice especially just seems oversimplified, like it's a foam molding or something like that, and it needs to be something special. And rafter tail ends could be something interesting. The tile detailing. And I would like to see some more landscaping. It's just kind of lost a bunch, and it's nice softening element. That would be my comments.
All right.
The use of the building throughout the year is detrimental to landscaping.
Yeah.
And so, the paving materials maybe are more important than landscaping in a lot of ways.
I think there's a solution that some could be added.
Pots.
Just asking him to look into it.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, maybe even the pots thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I do think what Commissioner Lenvick was saying, I had a similar thought where there is definitely trees going, but this is State Street and it's filling in with building, which makes a lot of sense. So but there also might be some good landscape opportunities.
Paseos are nice when they have some plantings and some shade and
Bougainvillea,
some shadow detail and
Yeah.
all that sort of stuff.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, so, all right, so let me give a summary here, and we can move it along. So we thank the architect and applicant for a very supportable project, very nicely done, and we look forward to seeing it come back for project design approval with additional items to continue to be fleshed out and refined. So one is rafter ends, rafter tails appropriately spaced, and profiles. The cornice, study the cornices and the plaster details, because there are only a few, so to make them really special. To adjust the window so that they have muntins and/or for the State Street facing window is to be a storefront if chosen. Let's see. Walls, to make sure the walls are, and especially the State Street facing the most public walls to be at least 8 inches thick with inset windows.
Study adding landscaping.
Yep, and study adding more landscape in pots or other forms. And any other comments? All right.
Locate the outside heaters.
We won't make them do that. Okay, making sure that the double check valve is adequately screened. And any other comments? All right, who would like to make a motion with those, to continue indefinitely with those comments? Anyone?
I'll move well, it was here for concept.
Indefinite continuance.
Pardon me?
Indefinite.
I'll move for an indefinite continuance with the comments that I so eloquently made regarding our observations.
I'll second.
Really? You seconded his eloquence?
His eloquence. That's his name, his title, his eloquence.
All right. Motion and a second under discussion. Any more discussion? All right. Roll call vote, please.
Thank you, Chair Grumbine. I'll take roll call vote. Commissioner Dornan?
Yes.
Commissioner Drury?
Yes.
Commissioner Butler?
Yes.
Commissioner Lindvik?
Yes.
Commissioner McClure?
Yes.
Vice Chair House?
Yes.
Chair Grumbine?
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right. Nicely done.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. All right. So anything else? Nope. All right. We are adjourned. Meeting adjourned.